So, hello everybody. I would like to welcome today one of the most important people in my life, Abi McCluskey, who is not only a friend of mine, but also a professional colleague and a huge mentor. We met probably over 10 years ago now. I think I was training to be what's called a block clearance therapist through the Tree of Life Centre in Gloucestershire, which was a therapy that we could use to help access the subconscious for clients. But it also has a very interesting spiritual bias, which has helped me on my journey, and Abi has helped me so much on my journey, both spiritually and professionally. And I don't know how I would have got here today, really. Even doing this podcast, starting this podcast, Abi has been really instrumental subconsciously in getting me here. So I owe her my life. I really do. So I'm really excited today to invite her onto the show. I know you're a little nervous because this is not
Yes.
a normal situation. Normally I'm the other side and you're interviewing me. So Abi today is going to share about her professional life, but also on a personal level, because when we're therapists, we're there to help everybody else. But it would be really nice to hear Abi's journey here and her personal journey, because she doesn't talk about it much. Anyway, welcome to the show, Abi.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you for having me and for those kind words. I'm not sure I can take that much credit for that much of your journey, but we have learned an awful lot from each other, and I'm very grateful that you are in my life.
Me too. Me too.
So, yes, as you said, we met at the Tree of Life Centre, where I practice as a block clearance therapist. Interesting journey to get there for me. I landed up there about 20 years ago, because I was a very successful, very unhappy business consultant, pretty much drinking myself to death and just not wanting to be here, which has been a bit of a theme throughout my life. And I met Trisha, who developed this therapy that we both studied under. I thought she was crazy, because she does have this therapy that does have some spirituality attached to it, which I had nothing in common with at the time. So yeah, I thought she was bonkers, and 20 years on, I am now officially part of the madness. And I work at the centre, I help her run the courses, and I assist her with the training and the workshop. So yeah, I am fully blown mad these days.
So tell me how you got attracted to Trisha. What led you to that point? Give us a little bit of background.
I think I finally ended up getting to Trisha, I think the way most people get to Trisha, or you or me these days, which is word of mouth. You know, somebody knew somebody knew somebody. I knew I needed to go and see somebody, and I had known for a long time that I really needed to do something to sort myself out. But at the time, I was so stuck in the corporate world, I really believed that therapy was for people who were either mad or weak. And I was very much in the, surely I can just sort myself out. I haven't had any massive trauma in my life. There's nothing to explain why I feel the way I feel. I just need to get on with it. And I was self-employed. And I remember waking up one morning with a really bad hangover, which was pretty much common practice for me back in the day, because I could do my job really well with a hangover. Now, obviously, we can't do the job we do with a hangover, so that's helped a lot. But I actually remembered just sitting in bed and thinking, God, I just want to get really sick so I don't have to go and do this job. And given that I was self-employed and therefore wouldn't earn any money if I wasn't working, even I thought, whoa, that's messed up. You need to do something about it. And about 4 months later, my husband, Mark, was working with a mutual colleague, and he recommended Trisha for Mark because we were having some problems in our relationship. So he actually went to see her first, came home and was raving about it and told me I must go and see this woman. She was fantastic. And I think it probably took me another 3-4 months to work up the courage to go and see her, because that's what it was about. It wasn't about being weak. It was actually having the guts and the courage to go and talk to somebody and trust that they're not going to judge you, that they're going to help you. Yeah, it was scary. I can still remember the drive up there. no idea what I was going to talk about, and obviously talked about completely different things to the things that I had on my agenda. But yeah, that was the start of it.
Because
And
Trisha is a bit of an enigma, isn't she? It's, you know, I had a similar experiences that I was going through a breakup at the time, and two people within the same week both said, "You need to go and see this lady called Trisha." And when you hear it 2 or 3 times, it's like, well, who is this lady Trisha? And I remember blindly going in to see her. I have no idea what you do. I have no idea what this is about. I've been to therapists before, but I know that you're not the same kind of therapist. And I remember landing in a chair thinking, well, I'm just here to talk to someone, but I have no idea what you're going to do. What do you think is it, now that we've worked with Trisha and it's part of our life, what do you think Trisha means to the tree of life or block clearance or spirituality? How would you describe her?
Oh my goodness. I mean, she is just, for me, she's a force of nature. Seriously. I mean, she's achieved so much in her life. You know, she was the first female pathologist in the UK. She's got a medical background. She has a PhD. She was always a very spiritual person because she was brought up in a spiritual family. And she's just, I've never known anybody with a work capacity like her. I mean, we all joke, as you know, Deb, that she works far too hard, which is partly because she has got so many clients and people desperately still want to see her. But she combines that very caring, gentle energy with that scientific, logical brain and that spiritual understanding that just for me, after a couple of sessions with her, she just lets things slot into place so naturally for you. She guides you on that journey, but never tells you what to do. She doesn't talk to you like you're an idiot, but she doesn't leave you hanging. She's just, yeah, I mean, she is one of the closest people in my life now. You know, for me, she is now family in the same way that you are. And yeah, I created her with me still being here because I'm not sure I would be if I hadn't met her.
And the philosophy of the work that we do, it's about being able to explain what's going on what's going on underneath. She had a clever way of just saying, well, what's happening to you now is because of this, and being able to see that your life is a linear journey, and that there's a reason why you're here, and everything made sense, and it's become our life. It's totally the way that we think. It's totally the way that we help our clients, and it's literally changed our lives.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was the thing for me because I had no intention of being a therapist when I went to see her. I just wanted to either find a way to enjoy my life and my job a bit more or decide to do something else. So I had no idea. And I do remember when she suggested I do the weekend workshops, which is the start to studying. I remember thinking, no, because it's going to be a bunch of hippies and they'll all be chanting and eating soya beans. And there were some people like that. And it was very different back in that day because I think I was one of the few people who was working in the corporate world that was also doing these workshops. I mean, now we're running the workshops now and 95% of people are in regular jobs. So it's changed a lot in those 20 years. But I remember doing these workshops and I hated the first day because I'm actually quite a shy person and I don't like big groups of people that I don't know. And then on the second day, I met Beth, who, as we know, Trish's partner, is also a force of nature. And I met Joe, who I then went on to study with, who became a very close friend. And that was kind of it for me. And as you said, what I fell in love with about this therapy is it just makes sense for me of things that otherwise make no sense at all. It just helped me piece together. Why do I have these thoughts and these beliefs and these patterns and these challenges that logically make no sense to me? Because, you know, I had massive judgment issues. I had huge fear of failure issues. I had lack of self-worth. I had so many challenges in my head, but I couldn't tie them back necessarily to anything specific because I didn't have a hugely traumatic childhood. You know, I wasn't bullied at school. I was pretty much successful at everything that I decided to try, which again comes back to that fear of failure and judgment, which makes you a fantastic paranoid overachiever, which I became. But I was never happy. And I just couldn't understand, looking around all these people that I worked with who seemed to really enjoy themselves. Why did I just not really feel joy about anything? Just kind of flatlined through my life thinking, when is this going to be over? And she really helped me piece it together. And as you say, it's one of the things I love about what we do. That's what we do now for other people.
So if you could explain to the listeners perhaps a little bit about your life, and who's been in it and the pattern that it's taken, and then we'll come back and look at it through the spiritual meaning of it, and how it's helped you to make sense of this world, this journey.
Yeah. So I am the middle child of 3 girls. I was actually born in Gloucester, although, as you can tell by my accent, I spent most of my life, or certainly the first half of my life, in Scotland. But ironic, really, that I now work about a mile away from where I was born, down in Gloucestershire. My mum didn't want another child. She had my older sister. She really didn't want to get pregnant again, so she was not happy when she realised she was pregnant with me. My dad desperately wanted another child. And my mum thought I was boy. And my name was Adam until I was born. And then she realised with some disappointment that she was having another girl. And I think that shaped actually a lot of my childhood. I have a very boyish figure. I was always being mistaken as a boy when I was growing up. I had very short hair. I was quite a tomboy. And I always used to put that down to I was really close to my dad, much closer to my dad than I was to my mum. But in terms of my childhood, it was a Scottish Protestant house. You didn't get a lot of praise. We didn't get punished, but it was quite strict. My dad could be quite strict, although he was a lot of fun. But I certainly developed very early on that kind of fear of getting things wrong or fear of being given into trouble, you know. And my mum had a lot of hormonal problems growing up, so she was pretty unpredictable, is my memory for probably most of my life from when I was about 10 onwards. We never knew what sort of mood she was never physically violent or anything, but she could be really emotional and really tough. And I remember actually when I was 16, my dad telling me if I upset my mum again, I would have to leave home. And I hated him for about 5 years for that, because we hadn't done anything. And now, obviously, I recognise he was just supporting my mum because that's what he believed he should do as a husband. But that was tough because I'd been really, really close to my dad. And I really felt that loss when I switched that button and decided he was the worst father in the world. And we got somehow reconciled when I was about 21, and then we became best of friends again. And we were pretty great friends up until he died. So that was fab. I'm on my second marriage. Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Carry on, you carry on.
I was just going to say I'm on my second marriage. I married my childhood sweetheart. I met my first husband when I was 16. We got married at 21. Really just became best friends, and it wasn't working for me, and we split up when I was 24. And then I met my second husband, Mark, and we've been together over 30 years now. And as you know him, Deb, he is wonderful, and sometimes I just want to kill him.
But you've survived it.
Survived this long. I think I'm going to keep him.
And you also mentioned that you, coming in, you thought, Mum thought you were going to be a boy. And then in your career, you've gone into a very masculine, you went into a very masculine career. Do you think that was a conscious thing, or do you think you were still wearing that identity?
I don't think consciously I went for a masculine career, but I do remember from a very early age deciding that I wanted to be successful, that I wanted to make a lot of money. And I guess I kind of ended up in software, customer relationship marketing space because it was a way to make a lot of money. And it was just strange as well. Obviously now I look back and go, there are no accidents because everything's led me to where I am. But at the time, apart from my very first job after my degree, I never interviewed for a job. Opportunities just fell to me. So it kind of just happened rather than being anything conscious about it. But I never enjoyed any of them. I would like to say I enjoyed the money. That's not actually true, because even with all that money, I never really enjoyed anything. But I think it gave me a sense of worth and it gave me a sense of achievement, even though I spent every day in terror that my imposter syndrome would be found out and people would realise I didn't actually have any idea what I was doing. But yeah, I earned a lot of money at a very early age. And if I'm honest, looking back, I don't think I was a great person. I think I was very materialistic. I think I was pretty self-obsessed. I think I was consumed by work, and because we made friends with the people that we worked with, we'd go out for dinner, we'd just talk about work. My mum's told me now that it was one of the most boring periods of my life because I had nothing to talk about other than work. But I do recognise now that, yes, I have always been very comfortable in that masculine environment. I've never felt, I've been very lucky in the sense that as a woman in business, I never felt threatened or powerless in that. Probably more the other way around, Deb, if I'm honest. If I look back, I probably was quite a bully in the workplace. I cannot be nice in the corporate world. It triggers in all sorts of patterns that I don't like about myself. I can make grown men cry, and that's not something you should be proud of.
You mentioned also that you used alcohol too, and
that
helped you to cope with your job. What triggered that in, do you think?
That was a very gradual thing. I've thought about that quite a lot recently because I recognise I still drink too much and I would like to drink less, although I'm much more responsible in how I drink now because of the job that we do. But I think when we first moved to London and were working for the startup, we used to really binge drink. So we'd go weeks without drinking because we'd be working really hard and then we'd really go for it. And I think that kind of carried on when I joined this consultancy company after the startup. There was a real binge drinking culture in there as well. So we'd go off every 6 weeks as a company and just get absolutely plastered for 2 days. One of the projects that I worked on when I was about 30ish, again, we did the same. We had a big team and we'd go away. So it kind of just crept up on me. And then I think when I went to work for my last corporate gig before I resigned, that's when I've recognised I started drinking every day. Just because I was so unhappy. It was like, okay, I'll work. And I was working hard and long hours, but I'll work, I'll get home, I'll just get pissed. Then I'll go to bed. Then I'll get up and I'll repeat it all over again. So I don't think it was ever a conscious thing to let alcohol get that out of control. I do have quite an addictive personality. I recognise that. I smoked for 38 years, which is ridiculous given that half of my health problems have always been lung related. So it's absolutely nuts. And it's the reason I've never tried drugs in my life. I don't have a moral objection. I just don't think I'd be here if somebody had introduced me to crack or coke. I'd been right down that street, never to return.
And your understanding now of using alcohol as a coping mechanism, what sense do you make of that now?
I think I've always had a complicated relationship with alcohol, and I've explored it a lot with Trisha over the years, so we have the kind of the reward culture. I grew up, so my dad was not an alcoholic, he was far from it, but the first thing he did when he got home at night was he poured a whiskey. So I think there was that thing in my psyche from quite a young age that if you've worked hard, that is your reward. And I think because I am so, or have been so awful at rewarding myself positively, I think I'm pretty good at rewarding myself destructively if I want to. So I recognise there was a combination of it's a reward and a punishment at the same time. It's an escape because I don't want to think, but then that then brings the judgment and the self-loathing the next morning so that you hate yourself even more and then you just go and get drunk the next night. And now, if I'm honest, I think what I'm fighting is it's still habitual for me. There is something in my brain that associates finishing work with, I should be allowed a gin and tonic, or I should have a glass of wine now. And that's the thing that I'm trying to work on at the moment. But I'm not sure where I'm ever going to end up. I mean, we joke that I'm the functioning alcoholic at the centre, and everybody has a little laugh about it. I don't ever drink, obviously, when I'm working. I don't drink to be hungover in the morning anymore, thankfully. I don't ever drink and drive. It never occurs to me to have a drink during the day. So I don't think I'm an alcoholic per se, but I definitely have an interesting and not necessarily entirely healthy relationship with Sauvignon Blanc. It's a work in progress still.
It's an addiction, or alcohol is a relationship you have, and you're having it with that on you, and it feeds something and it gives you something back.
Yeah. And I'm with friends, and if I'm in a good place, it will give me a lovely night. And if I am in a bad place, it's going to make me really morose and probably quite sad. But yes, I now have this kind of codependent relationship that both of us know we need to break, but neither of us are quite ready to let go yet.
It's a loss, isn't it? It's, it becomes so habitual. You've had a relationship with Mark for a very long time. You've had a relationship with alcohol for a very long time. And to let go of that, it leaves a hole.
Yeah, and I'm finding that I'm plugging it more. These days I work later, and that is a bit of a conscious choice for me. To think, instead of finishing at 6 or 7, no, actually, I'll put somebody until 8:30. And then I know I'm going to get home and I'm not going to be inclined to want to drink so much. So there's a little bit of me training, or, trying to do more things in the evening. So making sure I go to my Pilates class. There's a couple of other things that I'd like to start doing. And I think it'll be easier now that the weather's got a bit better. So I need to retrain myself in some healthier habits. And I think there is an element, if I'm honest, Deb, of I love the job that we do, and I feel so blessed that we can do it. But it can be exhausting, When I'm in it, I can keep going, but then I get in the car and I drive 45 minutes home. I can really be knackered when I get home, and I just think, I just don't want to think about anything, I want to just zone out, watch some TV, have a glass of wine and go to bed, which isn't every night, but I think there's an element of that as well. But I do think, and when I was thinking about it, I do think I still have that ability to destructively celebrate, if you like. I'm not very good at celebrating positively, I can ruin any Christmas. Not by being horrible, but just by creating some disaster that befalls me. That's kind of a pattern in my life.
Is there any association with Christmas that you can take it back to?
Oh, many, many awful things have happened. Well, I split up with my first husband on Christmas Day. So that wasn't great. I don't really remember childhood Christmases. I seem to remember that they were okay. So I can't pin it back to anything then. But between splitting up with my ex and then Mark with the wonderful family that he came along with, that pretty much then set a path to ruin every Christmas we had.
It's wonderful in inverted commas.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful learnings. Can't take that away. But in terms of happy experiences, not so much. So yes, a lot of Christmases, unhappy Christmases with them. And now we're getting on. In fact, we did joke that last Christmas was the first Christmas we seemed to get through without any really awful thing happening. So it was kind of like, yay, maybe we've broken it.
Well, Christmas is also a learned way that we can celebrate. And if you find that, alcohol is associated with celebration and a lack of deserving of celebration, then that's another time to sabotage.
Absolutely. And I'm very good at that, and I seem to be able to do it without even me doing anything. I can just manage to manifest somebody else kicking off or doing something, or, I lost my cat on Christmas Eve a few years ago. Just stuff like that where you just think, okay, yeah, I really am struggling to get into the positivity. So yeah, if I'm honest, I mean, if I didn't think it would upset everybody, I would just lock the door on the 24th and I'd re-emerge on the 1st of January and I'd just cancel the whole bit in between. But everybody else loves Christmas, so.
So you've told your story in terms of what's led you from your childhood to now, but if you could put it in a spiritual learning here, without this sounding woo-woo the listeners. First of all, what does spirituality mean to you?
Oh, there's a very good question, because I normally ask other people about that and I don't really think about it too much myself. For me, I do believe in, I just want to call it the universe, energy, source. I do believe we come from someplace collectively and we will go back there. I think we are all interconnected. So I do think everything happens for a reason. It doesn't mean that it feels positive. It doesn't mean that we're happy about it. But I believe that in this lifetime, we are all here with challenges to learn from. And therefore, the things that we encounter along the way are opportunities to learn. And once we've learned enough, we get to go somewhere that's way easier than down here because we'll have paid our dues. But I think everybody that you come into contact with has a part to play. And I think our job as human beings, and it sounds really cliche and I don't mean it to be, but we are all here to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And for me, that's about overcoming any patterns or blocks, as we call them, or belief systems or behaviors that stop you from achieving that.
So your spiritual awareness now, how do you think that has helped you to get where you are today?
Oh, 100%. If I had not gone down this journey, I'm pretty sure I would not have stuck it out. I think I would have found a way to check out early. Not that I necessarily would have committed suicide, but I think I would have just engineered a way to exit much more quickly. Because until I had that belief that, okay, I understand I am here to be the best version of me that I can be. What does that mean in this lifetime? For me, it means my single biggest challenge, Deb, I believe in this lifetime, is judgment. To let go of judgment of other people and judgment of myself. And actually, if you look at universally what's going on, I think that's a lot of people's challenges. Because I could really hate on myself big time. I mean, I have a lot of other peripheral challenges as well, but that's my single biggest challenge, I think, that I repeatedly face, is to not go into judgment of myself and to not sabotage as a result of that. So that's been a big part. And without understanding that that is a pattern that I challenged and why I carried that pattern in the first place, along with some of my other things about, actually, I am supposed to be here. It's not an accident that I'm here. I was meant to be here, because no life's an accident. That was huge. That was probably one of my biggest light bulb moments, was when I was talking to Trisha and she talked about what we call right of life. And if you come in for whatever reason and you do not believe you have a right of life, then it's going to create all sorts of sabotage and judgment and failure, and pretty much every pattern that I could pin myself on, we can tie back to that. So I think if I hadn't found that understanding that made me go, oh, that makes sense, actually, if my mum didn't want me, even though she wanted me after I got here, if I spent 9 months in the womb feeling that I wasn't wanted and disappointed when I popped out as a girl rather than a boy, of course I'm going to feel I've got it wrong. On our subconscious level, our imprints in there.
Your judgment started in the womb, wasn't it? Because
Yeah.
The judgment was not to be a girl, to be a boy, and then we have a girl. So immediately there's that receiving. The moment that we come out is one of the most important patterns that we can form, isn't it? It's how we were received.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not about blame. It's not about blaming your parents and going, it's all your fault. Absolutely. I chose this, I believe, on some level. And I don't mean choose consciously, because that would have been really stupid. But on some level, I was supposed to come in to learn that self-acceptance, that I'm okay for who I am, that it's up to me to validate myself, not anybody else. It's up to me to love myself. And that means looking at all the ugly bits of you and understanding where they've come from, why are they there, but most importantly, what can we learn from them and how do we let them go? And that's what I think, certainly that's what BCT did for me. And I think, to your point, Deb, as you said, it's not a job. If you start to believe in this stuff, it just becomes a way of life. You can't live any other way because nothing else makes sense. And I'm not fanatical, and I don't try and preach or convert anybody to my thought belief, but it works really well for me. It's helped me stick around, and I'm planning to stick around for a while.
For me, it was another connection to myself, but it was another way of looking at life that once you could reframe it as a moment of enlightenment or, a shift of consciousness. But for me, it was, oh, I get the point. I get what this is about. And once you see it, I couldn't unsee it. And life has made so much more sense of my human existence because of being able to see it from a different perspective, that I chose to come in and I chose everyone in my life and I've chosen my experiences, and some have been very tough. But actually I couldn't have got where I am today without those. And I'm thankful for them. And
yeah. And I think that's the other thing that it brings, and that I am really, really grateful, is it brings that gratitude. Not just the gratitude of where you are today, but the gratitude of your entire journey, And I am grateful for some of the awful things I experienced. Not necessarily as a kid, because I don't remember an awful lot of that, but, certainly in the work environment, some of the horrible things that you experience in the corporate world, and some of my relationships that I've had that have been truly painful and difficult. But my God, have I learned from them? And I can look back now and go, yeah, I totally understand why I was in that place at that time for that reason. And I learned that from it. And like you did, I believe if I hadn't done everything that I'd done, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I'm kind of pretty content finally with where I am now. And, like everybody, would I have liked to have done it 20 years ago? Possibly, but I'm not sure I was ready to see all this 20 years ago. Well, obviously I was, because that's when I first started. But, I believe everybody gets to where they need to get to at a time that their brain's ready to take stuff on board.
And it doesn't really matter where on that journey it is. The fact is to be the best version of ourselves and heal as much as we can heal. And if that happens at 70 or if it happens at 16, that's our time. It's letting ourselves off the hook that, I haven't wasted my life. No, you haven't wasted your life, because everything has helped you to get to that point. And mine was around 22, something like that. What age were you when you?
35.
35.
35 when I first went to see Trisha. Yeah. Long time ago. And my oldest client, Deb, he was 96, bless him. Came to deal with his anger issues. He passed shortly after that, but I had lovely 3 or 4 months with him. He was just gorgeous. And I remember the last time I saw him, he said, I'm really pleased I did this. And then shortly after, he passed away. So I think in some level he knew, but he was like, yay, I've nailed it after all this time.
And quite often when the clients who know that they're in the last chapter of their life and they'll come and work with me, they have a knowing of, there's something I need to understand here. There's something I just feel I have to heal before I go. And that's what I love about the work that we do, is people gravitate towards us. We go to what we need. And there's many, many therapists and very many different types of therapy, and we all gravitate to what we need. But the type of work we do, people are wanting to just understand their journey and grow. And it's great work that we do. If we take it back to Trisha works a huge amount, but she has to see so many people because her job is to get through, meet as many people and shift as many people as she can.
Yeah, I know. And as I said, I'm just so grateful. And to your point, there are many of brilliant therapies out there, loads of them. And it's just about finding the one that works for you. I mean, we often have clients who've tried lots of different types of therapy, and different therapies worked at different stages. And then they come for block clearance therapy because they're like, that was all great, but those tools and techniques aren't really working for me now. And I just feel I need to go a little bit deeper. Or you get people like me who have never done any therapy and somehow come straight in at the deep end and go, oh my God, what is this? What is she talking about? But yeah, and it's interesting because, you know, I would have said when I first started seeing Trisha all those years ago, 90% of her clients, I would have said, were female, maybe 95%. And I don't know if it's partly because I have got so much masculine energy in me, but at least half of my clients are male these days, which I love. I love the fact that men are being brave enough to go, no, I am seeing somebody. And in fact, I had a new client, a relatively new client. He's in the corporate world. And he told me that he told a few friends that he'd been to see me. And he said, I can't believe I did that. And I said, and he said, they just patted me on the back and went, good for you, mate. And I was like, it is changing slowly, not as quickly as I would like or you would like our view towards therapy. But it is changing, I think, for people recognizing there is a huge difference between mental illness and mental well-being and mental health. They're not the same thing. And we all have a duty to look after our mental wellness and our mental health. And I don't know how anybody can do that without talking to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to take you back to what you said right at the beginning, that you say, I have no traumas. You know, I had a relatively easy childhood, and but you knew that life was hard. And what do you think has kept you going, even though you said you want out?
For a long time, I thought it was just that I knew the impact it would have on everybody else if I went. I think that kept me going for quite a long time. You know, I knew Mark would be devastated. I didn't think I could do that to my parents, my friends, my family. I mean, that's the irony. If you looked at my life from the outside back in the day, you would have been like, what is wrong with you, you mad woman? You know, you earn a fortune, you've got a lovely house in London, you've got loads of friends, you've got a great family, you've got a gorgeous husband. I was ticking every box. So I think I managed to override a lot of that by saying, look at all this that you've got, Abi. And I think I just resigned myself to the fact that I just wasn't supposed to be happy. Because like I said, apart from maybe a few odd moments as teenagers, which I'm sure we all have some sort of, I'm going to check out as a teenager, I don't remember ever being suicidal. I just remember being very, very flat, very resigned. This is just me. I'm not passionate about anything. I don't really enjoy anything. I just need to get through it because I can't put everybody else through me checking out. Maybe it was because I just thought I don't want to make it sound like suicidal people are selfish. That's not what I mean, because I genuinely wasn't suicidal. I'm sure if I'd pressed that button, it would be a very different story. But I did think about other people. But I now wonder if there was something in me that knew at some point I was going to meet Trisha. And I just had to stick around to that point to give myself a chance to make sense of why I was here so that I could hopefully start to enjoy a little bit of life. But I think on a conscious level, it was yeah. Because, yeah, it never really made sense to me. Because I used to say, apparently, when I was a kid, that I wasn't going to be here for long. I've always said that I was going to die quite young. And I've never been afraid of death. Death has never scared me. Living scared me a lot of the time. Death has never scared me. Be interesting to see what happens when I do get to that point. But I'm now very comfortable with, okay, boys, I'm here for as long as I'm here, and just help me do the best that I can until then. And please let me learn all the lessons I need to learn, because I don't want to have to do it again.
And from your experience, how does that help you with your clients?
Oh, well, certainly some of my experiences really can help directly. I mean, I know we don't have time to go into it today, but, you know, my mother-in-law was a real narcissist, which was really, really hard at the time. But that's helped me so much, because I don't know if it's just because people are more aware of narcissists now, but it seems to come up a lot. And therefore, to be able to help people deal with coming out of narcissistic relationships, whether that be with their families or a partner, you know, I can spot a narcissist at 100 paces. So that's been hugely helpful. I think also, I mean, we're a little bit I don't want to say more interactive than other therapists. I don't mean that because that sounds really quite judgmental. I am okay with sharing some of my personal journey with clients if I feel it will help them. And I know that's quite different to some of the other therapies where it's much more boundaried. It's not we don't have boundaries, we just have different boundaries. So if I see somebody who I feel is going through something that I recognise from 20 years ago, I will happily share that I get where they're coming from. And then we can talk about sometimes, okay, what did I do in order to get past it? So I think we're all human beings. We're all flawed. I think it's good that we're flawed. We're supposed to be flawed because if we weren't flawed, we wouldn't be learning. So I think because I've worked so hard on the judgment, it's lovely. Part of the reason I love the job so much is I get to completely come out of judgment because you can't do this job if you judge people. You know, as soon as somebody sits in that chair, you just want to help them. So it's helped me with my own patterns because it's forcing me to come out of my judgment every day that I see somebody. But yeah, I wouldn't swap any of my experiences. And I think it's given me all these tools that when somebody comes in, you know, because I deal with a lot of people in corporate. So that's another part that I enjoy. You know, we'll talk about the politics and the nonsense that you have to go through that and how you navigate and do a bit of business mentoring, a bit of business coaching. So it's still, I can still use some of those skills, even though I'm not directly in the corporate world anymore.
And they certainly help. They help in our sessions. They help in our personal life. Each client that comes to us are really a mirror to us as well, aren't they?
Absolutely.
It's not as if we are all knowing here. We chose our job for a reason. There's no coincidence we're doing the healing work because we're into, you know, we're after healing too. We're crazy here, and we are just healing human beings on a spiritual journey. And it's wonderful to be able to have access to people who can heal us. But for everybody else, everybody that meets everybody every day who is on their journey are all learning from everybody. We're all
absolutely. Yeah, I learn from every single client, you know, and I don't think you ever stop learning in this job. Well, I don't think you ever stop learning, period. But I think it is one of the things I love about this job is I'm never going to know it all because things come up all the time and new stuff emerges, you know, and then you suddenly get a new client and you think you've seen that issue and then they give it to you from a completely different perspective and you're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. And then you start a whole bunch. So yeah, I just love it. Every time we do the weekend workshops, I learn a bunch more stuff from Trisha, but also from the people who are studying it. And when you see them getting really excited about understanding this stuff, then it kind of reminds you why you did it in the first place.
Yeah, the reason why I've done this podcast is for people to understand relationships. It's not just about a romantic relationship. We are in relationship with everybody around us, and that relationship is just mirroring something back to us, whether in a positive or a negative, and helping us on our journey. And I think the kind of work we do helps us to explain why that's important. And I think I've wanted to be able to introduce this philosophy into the podcast to be able to help people to understand their journeys. I've interviewed both my kids. You've worked with both my kids. You know my kids' journeys. And they also would not be as further on in their journey or as aware that as they have been. Yes, I'm part of their story too, but for you to help them understand that and help them to shift and grow, you've been very instrumental in my soul group.
Your kids are amazing, Deb. I love them both hugely. I am in awe of both of them. They are fantastic. So yes, do not underplay the role you played in that, my darling. They are like that. And, you know, yeah, they've gone through challenges, but yeah, that's just what makes it special, you know. We do this because it feels good when other people feel good, you know. I don't do this because I'm a saint. I do it because I get a big kick out of seeing somebody move forward and take control back in some way. And yes, to your point, you know, that was a really interesting lesson for me, that if you have a real problem with somebody in a relationship, whether that's work, personal, family, friends, whatever it is, the most powerful thing you can do is work out what it is in you that they're triggering. Because the minute you can identify what they're mirroring back to you or triggering in you, you can completely take your power back in that relationship. But most of us don't do that. We get angry or cross, or we judge, or we blame that person. So we're too busy being mad at them to work out what's actually going on for us. And that, for me, and we do a little bit of that in one of the workshops, and it can be really empowering for people when they've been carrying this angst or anger or rage and sometimes hatred towards somebody, and then they actually work out what it is about them that's being affected, then they can let it go. Sometimes it takes years, but and that, for me, I think that was one thing that really helped me in my relationship, not with my mother-in-law, but how I felt about my relationship with my mother-in-law, was understanding all this stuff much more, and recognizing what was mine and what wasn't mine, and where my boundaries were and how I could protect myself. That was hugely empowering.
No coincidence, she's in your life too.
Yes, bless her.
So I think it would be really interesting us coming back and doing certainly more podcasts, but we can pick subjects or pick different kinds of relationships and talk about it from this soul journey, this growth that we're trying to make our lives better, and hope that speaks to people. I know that whatever you talked about today is going to resonate with someone, and that's really all we want, is someone to understand. We all struggle, and we all have challenges in our life that sometimes feel insurmountable, but somehow we get through them. And if we can just pass that reassurance on to other people, you are a wonderful human. You are a wonderful soul.
Yes.
And you're not only helping others, but I'm indebted to the help that you've given me. So
thank you. Well, right back at you, Kit. But yes, if one person feels better after listening to us chat this nonsense, or thinks, do you know what, I'm going to go and find somebody and just speak to or understand that more, or if one person judges themselves a little bit less harshly for all the things they've messed up in life because they recognise, actually, don't do that. Try and learn from it, but try not to judge. I know how hard it is from years of practice, but my God, it's lovely when you can stop beating yourself up and take a step back and go, what can I learn from that so I can do it differently next time? Because then that's a huge win. If one person can do that, then I'll be very happy. Thank you for having me, my lovely friend.
You're welcome. And I think it would be nice to see if we can twist Trisha's arm to come on with us, and we'll have a three-way.
Oh, do you know what? At some point, podcast. I might just have it. That would be great. Oh, mind you, we'd have to warn people. That could go on for hours, that one. Do you know what I might do? Is might ask her to listen to this, and then you could say to her, look, if at any point you fancy doing it, why not? But yeah, it'd be great to hear her story.
And thank you for being so vulnerable on a personal level. If any of your clients get to listen to this, we are humans too, and that makes us better at the work that we do. But if people were to want to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
They can email me at abby@treeoflifecentre.co.uk. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And I will happily answer any questions anybody's got, or whatever it is they're interested in. So thank you.
Thank you. And likewise, if anybody wanted to come and explore that with me, they can get in touch with me through www.theenglishtherapist.com. So thank you very much, Abby.
Amazing.
It's been great.
My pleasure.
Till the next
I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. I don't mean that in a rude way to you, Deb. More about me and just letting myself chill. And yes, be interesting or cringing to hear this played back to myself, I think. We'll find out.
Okay, till the next time.
All right, my love. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.